Hello and welcome to Leave a Light On podcast, a show that looks to tackle the everyday struggles in our everyday lives. It's time to shed some light on it. Here's your hosts, Shayne and Chev.
Yo, good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you may be joining us, or in my native tongue, how's it? And to my co-host Chev, what's happening?
Hey buddy, what's going on? I'm really excited for today's episode.
Yeah,
episode number 3. So yeah, really pumped.
yeah, gonna be a good one. I don't know, I'm not as excited as you are, but
Yeah, so we did me last week.
yeah, we did you last week.
And you're this week.
Yeah, can you believe it?
I'm really excited to find out who you are, where you've come from, and the person you are today.
Well, obviously, to our listeners, you all know that today's guest is the one and only me.
Shayne van As.
Good job.
Yeah.
Very good job.
Not
Shayne,
Van As.
Not Van As, or Van As,
Van
or
As.
however you want to say it. Van As.
Yeah,
So-
no, this is awesome. So
I'll welcome myself. Welcome to our guest, Shayne.
listen to it, he gets into it.
Let's in it. Let's go. Actually, yeah. The other one I
Old
was
mate in the
gonna
background.
do.
I think he's had a few old mate in the background.
Yeah, he has. Another one I was gonna potentially do by the intro is I was gonna add today's guest is Shayne.
Yeah, well, I think the listeners are going to get a real good kick out of that. So you don't have to do that because I really do think the listeners are going to get a good kick. Good kick out of what you have to say and where you've come from.
Thanks,
Because it is.
Chev.
I
Thank
think
you.
just from the snippets you've told me, I think it's going to be awesome.
Thank you.
So without further ado, let's get into it.
Let's get into it.
So tell us about yourself. Who are you? What are you about?
Yeah, well, obviously my name's Shayne.
Yep.
I am married to one wife, and that is my wife Chantel,
What do you mean one wife?
which is
What
a
do you-
joke.
So in South Africa, you married one wife. So in South Africa, you can marry multiple wives.
In different cultures, you can marry.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
So,
wow. I'm
but
hard
yeah.
up trying to keep one happy.
Yeah, no. So I'm married to one wife. She's incredible.
Yep.
Yeah.
Cool.
Now I work in the mines.
Yeah, sweet. Yep.
I'm a qualified teacher
Oh yeah,
by
nice.
trade.
Yep.
Was a professional soccer player and was involved in soccer management for a while.
Yeah, right. Wow. It sounds like you've had a pretty, what would you say? Pretty interesting upbringing. Professional soccer player, teacher.
Yeah. Soccer.
What are you doing sitting here talking to me?
I don't know.
Professional soccer player. That's
Yeah.
pretty cool. Obviously for South Africa.
Yeah, not for South Africa.
Oh, right.
Specifically, I didn't represent national.
Right. Yep.
But yeah, I was lucky enough and fortunate enough to earn a career doing the sport I love.
That's good. Yeah, right. Fair enough. Yeah, I'm not. Unfortunately, I'm not a big soccer fan. I can't concur with you.
That's
That
okay. It's only the world's most popular sport.
I'm a cricket guy.
Are
Cricket-
you?
Yeah, cricket and AFL guy.
Okay, cricket.
So, but I do like the South Africans when Australia plays South Africa in the cricket. It's always
Yeah.
a good comp.
Always a good comp.
Oh,
yeah.
it is. It is. Anyway, so what childhood years growing up in South Africa? What were they like? How was that growing up? Going through school and whatnot in South Africa.
Yeah, well, from what you've heard, obviously South Africa is a pretty interesting place.
Yes.
Both interesting and good and interesting bad. So growing up, I was born in 1987.
Yep.
In a place called Johannesburg, which is known as the concrete jungle or Gangster's paradise to all my South African mates that are listening.
Yeah. Okay.
Peace out, GP.
GP. What do you mean?
Gauteng province is so like we don't have states. In South Africa, they call them
provinces,
provinces.
yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
And the one that Johannesburg is in is called Gauteng, and so GP Gauteng province is Gangster's paradise. They call it.
Oh, right. Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I was a bit like when you told me that, I looked at you weird because I was like, what? The hell?
Yeah. So
Fair enough. Okay.
Gangster's paradise. I was
Yeah,
born in
okay.
Johannesburg.
Yeah, right.
In 1987.
Yep.
My mother was 18 at the time when she had me.
Oh wow. So she was only young.
Yeah, she was actually still in high school. She was in her final year in matric,
Yep.
or year 12 as you call it, in Australia.
Okay.
And so she had me literally wrote her final matric exam or assessment and went straight to the hospital and had me.
How good's that?
Yeah.
Right out, I've got to go. I've got a baby to do. That is pretty cool.
Yeah.
The test results are in, folks.
Yeah, yeah.
That is pretty cool, eh?
I'm under no illusion that I was not planned. I
think you were. Come
Very
on.
much a mistake. My mother was, like I said, 18,
Yep.
and my dad was 20 at the time.
Yeah,
they
wow,
were not
okay, so-
married.
Yeah, very
they
young.
subsequently got married when I was two years old, 2 or 3. I was quite
Yeah,
young.
okay. So do you have any siblings along with you beside yourself?
Yes,
Yeah.
I
How
have
many you
my
got?
older sister,
Yep.
who was born with my biological parents, my mum and my dad. She's 6.5 years younger than me. Mm-hmm. So I'm the oldest by far.
Okay.
I think she was planned.
Just the one?
So yeah, I'll get into that now.
Oh, okay. Yeah, sorry. Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, cool. So
she's the full sister.
Yep,
And then
okay.
I have 2 half sisters and a half brother.
okay. Oh, nice. Rightio. Yeah, sweet. So do you see them very often, or are they still in South Africa? Do they live here?
So all my sisters are in New Zealand at the moment.
Oh, okay.
And my brother is, as far as I know, is back in South Africa.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. Yeah. Right. Sweet. Well, there you go. That's they're a bit spread out, aren't they?
Yeah.
Especially
Yeah.
from South Africa, New Zealand, and stuff like that. It's a bit.
Yeah, a little bit obviously
Yeah.
clarification on that. My parents got a divorce when I was 12 years old.
Okay. Yep.
So they separated, and
Yep.
my dad got remarried, and my 2 sisters are from him and my stepmother. Mm-hmm. And then my biological mother had a son with another individual, and he's my half brother.
Yeah. Okay. So what about your parents? Like how were they growing up? Like obviously, yeah, you mentioned that you had half sisters and stuff like that, and
Yeah, so
like and obviously your parents, like you've got a stepmom and stuff.
yeah, so growing up, obviously the first part of my life up until they got divorced, to be honest with you, it was pretty much picture perfect. It
Yeah,
was
okay.
the stuff that you would probably read in like movies or see in movies and things
Yep.
like that. My dad was fairly well off. He had a great job at the time and was earning good money.
Yep.
My mother was actually a stay-at-home mum because my dad was doing so well. And then obviously it was just my sister and I. And I had everything a child could want for. I didn't lack anything and lived in a really prestigious area back in Johannesburg.
Just about to say that, like, especially with South Africa. I mean, I've never been to South Africa or anything like that, but I've got mates of mine that have been. Like my old man's been to South Africa. So when you say you had everything as a kid, that for someone like me, like nothing bad, but it's very stereotype for me because you only see the bad parts of South Africa.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like if I could say that properly, if you know what I'm getting at. Like,
Yeah, like I say, like South Africa is a beautiful country, and I won't get too deep into it, but it's my love for South Africa. I mean, I'm still patriotically South African now, even though I've immigrated to Australia.
Yep.
I love my country, and I think I love South Africans in general. There's obviously a minority of people that make it in a really dangerous place.
Yeah, okay.
The crime stats and murder stats and everything like that are pretty high in South Africa.
Yep.
But the African culture is just such a beautiful culture. We
Yeah,
had
okay.
12 official languages in South Africa.
Yep.
Which obviously meant that those languages were associated with different cultures, which meant you had such a multicultural upbringing, for me anyway,
Yep.
which was wonderful. Like I said, I really enjoyed my upbringing and didn't
Yeah,
lack
that's
for
good.
anything. So
Yeah, cool.
and the people I've had the privilege of kind of having through my life have been incredible, and that's from all walks of life and all cultures.
Yeah, right. Okay, yeah, sweet. Well, that's really interesting to know that you've had a decent childhood, especially as you said, like, you know, because people outside looking in only really see the bad parts.
Yeah.
So it's good to know that you had a decent childhood and, you know, you had everything as a kid and all that sort of stuff. That's good that, yeah. I'm sure you would have seen the bad parts of South Africa yourself living there as well.
Oh yeah,
So,
I mean,
you would have seen some pretty interesting stuff. But
yeah, I would have seen some interesting stuff. Obviously, I've had my fair share of negative stuff that has happened and come through South Africa, from obviously being held up at gunpoint to having people break into my home to having my vehicle stolen. It's all
Wow.
became just part of life. To be honest.
Oh, mate, I would have cried. If I would have wet my pants if someone held me at gunpoint.
Yeah, look, I mean, it's pretty obviously scary.
But you would have been used to that living in South Africa, though, wouldn't you? Because that would have been not an everyday thing, but do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That would have been roughly So to get held up in gunpoint right now in Australia, it'd be different. Like it'd be like, what the hell is going on? Like,
Yeah, so like I
Yeah,
said, it
I
was you kind of grew up with
that around,
around, so you knew kind of what you had to do and what you were expecting, I suppose.
yep.
I still remember when I first landed in Australia, and a friend of mine picked me up from the airport, and we were driving out of Sydney Airport.
You were actually telling me this
Yeah,
story.
it was about 10:30 at night. I think 10:30, 11 o'clock at night, and we drove out of Sydney Airport, and I remember seeing this young couple walking down the street holding hands, like in this really like secluded area. It wasn't very like populated or anything like that. And they were walking holding hands. It was like I still remember looking at my friend and being like, "What the heck are these people doing? Like, they can't be walking out here all by themselves and things like. Surely that's not safe." And he just looked at me and he was like, "Dude, like you're not in South Africa anymore."
Because I remember you telling me off air about that. You said if you did that in South Africa, more than likely you probably would get jumped.
You were putting yourself in a really precarious place. Put it that way.
Yeah. Okay. Well, other questions. Just trying to get to know Shayne and what he's all about. But like, where'd you go to school at in South Africa? Like how was school growing up?
Yeah.
Like friends and stuff. Like how was it?
So
growing
school
up
for
in
me
South Africa?
was quite interesting. Obviously, at the time, South Africa had just come out of apartheid, which means a lot of schools were starting to become multicultural.
Yep. Okay.
Which in my primary school, to be honest with you, I don't remember too much about it.
Yep.
It was in the middle of Johannesburg. It was a very decent school. I think we had about 1,000 kids or students.
Which that's quite a fairly sized school.
Yeah, it was fair. Yeah. But it was, like I said, I had a fairly good first upbringing up my primary school when I was 12 years old. I was like to think I was pretty intelligent. I was achieving pretty good marks in school, and probably I was at the time, I think I was second in the province for mathematics. Okay. So
yeah, right, wow. Well, that's why we're doing the podcast, and you're the brains behind it. So yeah, you're pretty switched on with this technical,
Thank you.
yeah. So no, fair enough. But that's pretty cool. The second in Providence. So that's that must be a pretty huge achievement.
Yeah, and then
for you,
and then I would say probably the second half of my kind of schooling career was very different to the first half.
Yeah, okay. So what's that all about? So are you talking about like high school?
Yeah, high school.
Okay.
So
do you just want to elaborate? Give us a quick rundown. Don't have to go into too much detail, but
no. Well, I suppose so. Life changed very much when kind of 12 years old hit for me. That was like year 7, so I was going into high school the next year, and obviously parents came to me and sat my sister and I down. It was very much different. She was only 6 years old at the time. And they obviously informed us that they were going to be separating. They were getting a divorce.
Yep.
And so, to be honest with you, it wasn't something that I really knew much about at the time. I didn't know what it was going to entail. Obviously, all I knew is that they were going to be separating and they were going to be living in different houses. And it was a big shock for me. And
especially at 12, because you're getting older, but you still got a little bit of an immature brain. You don't really know what's going on with. Do you know what I'm trying to say? Like it's one of those things.
It's critical. I would say it's probably one of the most critical times in a child's life is that 12, 13, 14 years where they're kind of becoming that adult.
Yep.
Maturing, going through that puberty stage and things like that, and kind of just figuring out a lot more about themselves.
Yeah. Okay.
So it was just it was a very interesting time for me. I didn't really know how to take it, and anyway, my dad was incredible through the whole process. Like he obviously said to us, like he still cared a lot about my mother, and he was going to make sure that she was wanting for nothing, and he was obviously going to move out, and she would have everything she needed to look after my sister and I, and we would go and visit him obviously every second weekend or whenever we needed. We were going to spend time with him. And he was very respectful towards my mother, and never to this day I don't think I ever remember him ever saying anything negative towards her or putting her down in any way, shape or form. Like he was incredibly integrous about the whole situation, which I've always admired.
Yeah, okay.
On the other hand, my mother didn't take it so well. She was not happy with the whole divorce situation. She often would put my father down and obviously put a lot of the blame on him and say he was the reason why we were going through this, and he was the reason for all the heartache and the pain, and so and because we were obviously living with her, it definitely put a lot of strain and stress on us, especially in that like development kind of stage of our life.
Of course, especially if like your mum, like one side of the coin's like, all for it, like still praising your mum, stuff like that, and then but the other side of the coin, it's a bit more, uneven, if that makes sense. Like, like your mum, So, but being 12 years old and stuff like that, like, I mean, just quickly, like my old man and my mum got a divorce, but I was 2, so I didn't know. Do you know what I mean? But what I'm saying is, like 12 years old is probably a bit more. You still don't really know what's going on, but you got more of an idea.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Yeah, you kind of can comprehend it, if at the same time I don't think you're mature enough to really grapple what it means.
No, that's exactly right.
So it's a very interesting age.
Yeah, okay.
So that all kind of happened when I was 12, 13 years old, and that transgressed. From there, my dad met his now wife, my stepmom.
Yep.
And we ended up moving from Johannesburg to a coastal place called Durban, which is very similar to Newcastle, where we are now, in terms of the climate, and it was a lot more laid back and
more coastally.
Yeah. So obviously surfing and beaches and those kind of things.
Yep.
And that kind of climate, which is very different to me. And initially I'd fought the whole process of moving because I was very settled in Johannesburg and.
You would have had friends and everything.
And I came to a place where my real mom's grandparents were in Durban, and we would often come and visit them for like holidays and things like that. And I always enjoyed it, but I didn't enjoy it enough to really move there.
Yeah.
So, and I didn't know anyone. But anyway, I managed to have, I had the privilege of getting into a really like high-end school in Durban. It's probably in one of the top 10 schools in the country.
Yeah, right. Wow.
And it was, with that obviously came a big price tag to it.
Yeah, of course it would have been. It would have been very expensive.
Yeah, at this stage, obviously with the divorce and things like that, my dad had also changed jobs at the time and was not earning as much as he was. So we weren't very affluent when it came to obviously what some of the other students' parents
sort
were.
of middle of the road type of thing.
Yeah, in this particular school, I would say I wasn't even middle of the road. I was probably on the lower end.
Okay.
When it came to some of the budgets that some of them were working with.
Yep.
And it was a boarding school as well.
Rightio. So that was all boys?
All boys.
Oh, rightio.
Boarding school.
So that explains how you are now.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, that's all right. Did you get beaten? Yeah. I'm joking.
Yeah.
No, boarding schools, all boys.
Yeah, and
back in the 70s and stuff, people, used to get flogged.
Well, yeah.
But obviously different times.
Big
all
egos.
good. No, that's all right. So okay, that's pretty interesting to find out. That you were middle of the road, sort of on the lower end, especially going to such a high end school and all that. Do you think that benefited you in the long run, going to such a high end school, boarding school, with your career choices that you made?
Look. Yeah, I mean the education level I was getting was obviously
really awesome,
incredibly good, and definitely does bode me well in terms of obviously career.
Yep.
I think for me, the things that I got out of school was a lot more life lessons.
Oh, right, yeah,
if that made sense.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
I think growing up and having, like I said, everything I had, and then going there and seeing what everyone else had, and then experiencing the other kind of spectrum of the financial kind of table, it made me appreciate things a lot more.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, right.
I think I also high school was probably one of the toughest times of the kind of life, to be honest with you.
Yep.
Especially in the school I was obviously grappling with the fact that I was going through a lot personally with my parents, and without getting into too much, there was other things that were going on there.
Yeah, cool.
But I wasn't the most confident person, and in that, obviously, going to a school where there were a lot of egos from the students there, and a lot of people thought that they were better than others, and so one of the hardest things I had to probably go through was that I got bullied.
Yeah,
when I
really?
was in high school. Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Like pretty severely. Like I was told I was the lowest of low. I
Yep.
was called every name that you could think of. I was
Yeah, right, wow.
told I would never amount to anything, to the point where I was even beaten.
Yeah, okay.
I had guys walk up behind me and just kick me for no reason, or
Yep.
hit me in the back of the head, or
Yep.
those kind of things, just because they thought they were better.
Yeah, it sounds very similar to me, like the bully side of things. So I can relate to that a little bit. Growing up, going through the high school years, so I can definitely relate to that.
I still remember going home some days and just absolutely like bawling my eyes out to my dad and just being like, I don't want to go back to school. Like I would, I'd say I was sick in the morning sometimes to not go in.
To not go, right.
And meanwhile, there was absolutely nothing wrong with me,
Yeah, okay.
So high school was tough. It taught me resilience, to be honest.
Okay.
Pushing through that, and I did subsequently meet some really key figures through that to really kind of stand with me a little bit and show me a bit of support, which was great.
Yeah.
And like I said, high school taught me a lot of life lessons.
Yeah, cool.
I don't feel that people need to go through that in order to kind of learn those life lessons.
Yeah, okay. So you're talking about like the whole divorce, bullying, stuff like that.
Yeah. There was other issues at the time. With my mother.
Yep.
Obviously, she didn't take the divorce too well, and she started to. She got into drugs quite badly.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
And so it all culminated.
Yep.
Which long story short, it all culminated to a point where my sister and I actually ended up going to live with my dad.
Okay. Which wouldn't have been easier in itself. Your mum doing that type of thing, it would have been a lot harder as well.
So culminated with that and the bullying and everything like that. High school was an incredibly tough period for me to kind of walk through. I really battled.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. I suppose the battles that we fight every day makes us who we are, really.
Yeah.
So I like to think that, I mean, we've known each other for close to 2 years now, and I like to think that even though you've had struggles growing up, and obviously I've had struggles growing up, it's made us the people that we are today.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for those struggles.
Yeah, exactly. So, but as you said, good life lessons you've learned.
Yeah.
So,
yeah.
What about, just trying to think now, so what about like influences and stuff like that? Who was your biggest influence going through school? Like, who did you look up to, and
Yeah.
what did you want to inspire to be when you left school and stuff? I guess.
So
the question, I suppose.
Going through high school, I suppose my biggest influence and probably the person I'd say was my hero was my father.
Okay. Yep.
I really did look up to him. He was, like I said, the whole way through, he's incredibly integrous. He never ever said anything negative towards my mother. He protected us. He made sure that my sister and I always were looked after and had everything we needed.
Yep.
And then subsequently, like I said, when we eventually did go live with him, there was never anything in him that was against it in any way or fought it. Or I still remember him coming at 2:00 in the morning to come pick my sister and I up.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah, right. So he always had your back.
Yeah.
Which is great.
Yeah, and he himself had a bit of a difficult journey going through life as well.
Yeah, okay.
Through this whole period, and even up until fairly recently, I would say. And I've always admired his resilience and his kind of fortitude to always kind of just keep going.
Yeah, right.
Through everything.
Yeah, cool.
So he was definitely one of my biggest kind of influences, I would say.
Yeah, sweet.
The other probably influence I would probably say came along later in my high school career was it all culminated probably in my final year of high school, and I was in a real bad place, and a friend of mine invited me to a youth group at the church, and I kind of didn't really want to go to be honest, because I didn't really know much about Christianity or anything like that at the time. And anyway, it all culminated one day when I was like, eventually I just was at a place where I just couldn't keep going, and I was like, okay, let's go. I'll give this a go. I'll go with you on a Friday night to a youth group and see what it's about.
Yeah, okay.
And ended up going and met some really key people in my life there that are still in my life today, that I really consider role models.
That's good. That's good that you got close to people with
Yeah.
that, and that they'll be able to become a bit of an influence on your life. You know what I
Yeah,
mean? Like that's good
just-
that you had them there. You know.
Key people, like a very good friend of mine, Phil.
Yep.
Okay. I don't think he realizes
Oh,
how much
yeah.
impact he's had in my life.
Well, shout out to Phil if he's listening. Hopefully he's
Yeah.
listening to this podcast.
Yeah,
So,
his brother Colin also. He had an older brother Colin.
Yeah, okay.
Was also a really big influence in me, and
yep.
just in terms of
Let's say those boys are listed.
yeah. And then another guy who was the youth leader at the time is Hilton. Always someone I've really admired and looked up to because he's not what you would expect
Yeah, really. Okay.
from someone who has been in the church as long as he has, I suppose.
So what do you say? A bit rough around the edges.
No, he is one of the coolest guys I know.
Yeah, okay,
like
right.
so cool and like switched on and suave.
I thought
and-
you might have meant like, yeah, he's a bit rough around the edges like
No,
me, you know what I mean? But being a pastor, you
yeah,
know.
he's just so down to earth. Like,
Yeah, cool. That's
like,
awesome.
He just really, he gave me a different perspective
Yep.
in terms of what it was to actually have faith in life.
Yeah, okay.
So
that's awesome.
Yeah, he was a big influence and still is a big influence. In fact, he messaged me the other day.
Oh, did he?
and
Oh, okay. That's
we
good
had
that
a
you're still in contact.
Yeah, we had a good laugh. We
Yeah.
often had some laughs about certain things that had happened, and there's this key one where he would have a good laugh about this. But one day at church, they had this fake snake that they set up on this like fishing line.
Yeah.
And they called me outside, and this was outside. He called me outside, and I came walking out, and this fishing line wrapped around my leg, and the snake came out the bush. And I still remember just absolutely losing my mind because I thought it was a snake and they just cackled themselves.
That is awesome. I've seen like videos like that on YouTube and stuff, and the reactions of people.
He sends me little reels about it all the time. He loves it.
So what was that? Was that he that?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, it
cool.
was
So
a
you can see that
practical
he's
joke.
yeah, okay.
He's
So
a
you can see
practical
he's a bit
joker. Loves it.
Bit of a joke. Yeah, cool.
So yeah, those are kind of the at the time the key influences. I had others in life as well. I had a really key family that kind of after that it kind of pulled beside me and helped me. There were two actually that I can remember offhand.
Yep.
Very good friends of mine still, and they actually live in Australia now. The Thornton family.
Okay.
They were really key in helping me and growing me into this person. And then there was also the Roberts family.
Yeah, nice.
Who Kerry used to work with me as a teacher.
Okay.
And her daughters were in the school as well, and then her husband Ryan. Yeah, so they were
right.
they were really key influences in my life at the time. And
Yep.
yeah, I had others, but those are probably the most prominent that I can think of.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I was just about to say that that's really awesome that going through school, all that sort of stuff, and you did have influences to sort of push you along a little bit and sort of influence you, which is really good that you've always had someone there to help you.
Yeah, and I'll
which is awesome.
also quickly just throw this in. My stepmom when she came on board with my dad and they got married when I was I think 17 or 18 at the time. She was incredible as well. She really did jump on board and kind of just took my sister and I on as if we were her own kids.
Which is really hard. Just quickly, I don't mean to cut you off, but just quickly there, it's very hard for someone that's random to come in and fulfill that position.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't always work.
Yeah.
And I can speak from just quietly firsthand about that.
Yeah, so she was incredible and you know
So that's awesome.
I've always admired her for that and respected her immensely for the role that she has.
Yep. Yeah, it's good that she's
Played, yeah.
As I said, come in because, as I said, I can speak firsthand that it doesn't always seem to work when a step parent comes in. You know, but for her to have the support for you like a mother, it's really awesome.
Yeah.
So, you mentioned before that you were a school teacher. So what sort of pushed you into that to do school teaching and stuff like that? Like, what was is it something you always wanted to do when you were through school?
No, it wasn't. My original plan when obviously going in high school was that I was going to kind of come out of high school and I was going to go into the Air Force because I wanted to get my pilot's license and I wanted to be a pilot.
Yeah, okay.
It's kind of what I could always imagine myself doing. And then things just changed in my matric year. I kind of felt like that was not the path I was supposed to take.
Yep.
I'd started kind of getting recognized for my soccer talent at the time.
Yeah, okay.
And so things just changed. I managed to get the chance to train with a few professional clubs, and I started studying theology instead, which was incredibly eye-opening to me. Just things changed. And then I finished studying my theology qualification.
Yep.
And the soccer side of things just wasn't progressing to where I wanted it to progress. And I didn't know what I was going to do. And heaps of people had always said to me throughout my life that I was really good with like younger kids. I was always good with like whenever we would have like our cousins or whatever the case is, or my sister would have friends over. I was always good with the young kids, and they would always be like, "Oh, you would be so good with kids. You need to go into something with kids." Blah 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 blah. And it just kind of culminated into a point where I was like, I'd done a lot of coaching up until this point, and I really enjoyed the influence and the
working with the kids,
working with kids and stuff like that. And I guess that just kind of spurred me to be like, well, maybe I can kind of go into that and be a teacher. And so I started studying to be a teacher, and I did my internship at a really incredible school in South Africa, a primary school.
Okay.
Which I absolutely love and adore to this day.
Yep.
It was an incredible time. And that's actually where I met Sam Thornton and Kerry Roberts, the two that I was saying that were part of the families that had an influence on me.
Yeah, okay.
And at the time it was a difficult stage where I was working 3 jobs at the time to try and kind of support myself, and I didn't have the best living conditions.
Yeah, okay.
And so, I was really struggling to kind of, and at the time my parents weren't really in a position to help in any way either. So it was kind of sink or swim for me at that time.
Okay.
So I was working 3 jobs, trying to kind of just make sure that I could pay for my studies and
keep your head above water type of thing.
keep my head above water, keep a roof over my head and whatever shape that was.
Yeah, okay.
And just make sure that I had some food on the table.
Well, you're in Australia now, and the opportunities are limitless.
Very, very different. Yes, very different.
You mentioned before, back at the start of the conversation, Chantel, your wife.
Yes.
How'd you come to meet her? Was it in South Africa?
No, I didn't meet her. So my wife is actually originally from, I got to get this right because she'll probably, she's originally from Zimbabwe.
Zimbabwe. That's how we say it in Australia. We're Australian.
She's originally from Zimbabwe, her and her family.
Yeah, okay.
And she immigrated with her family 20 years ago now to Australia.
20 years? Oh, so she was actually...
She was in Australia, in
Australia
Newcastle.
way before you?
Way before me.
Oh, so she's more not of an immigrant than you are?
Yeah, she is an Australian citizen, actually.
She's not?
She is.
Oh, she is. Oh, that's right. Are you?
Family. No, I'm not a citizen. I'm just a permanent resident.
Well, that's not good enough. When did you get you citizenized? Sorry, keep going.
Cool. I came over to Australia 4 years ago, 4.5 years ago, at the beginning of 2020, and I came for the Thornton family, their daughter Summer, who I had taught and had helped kind of grow up and had been a part of their family for, she's close on, I think it was 12 years at the time. She was getting married.
Oh, right. So you come over here for a wedding.
I came over for the wedding. They immigrated here, and I think it was 2016 they immigrated to Australia.
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Might have been a little bit before that, 2015. And they came across and they immigrated and settled in Australia. And so she met an Australian who was also born in South Africa.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it's crazy.
Like to keep it in the family,
keep it in the culture.
The culture.
And so I got invited to the wedding in 2020, and I came over in 2020 in February, and we all know what happened in 2020.
Oh, COVID.
Yeah.
I was wondering what you were getting at.
COVID,
COVID.
COVID hit and borders were closed, and I got to hang around, and in that.
So you couldn't actually fly back to South Africa?
I could.
COVID.
I could, but I also knew what was happening, and so I kind of took a gamble and said I would rather stay here.
Okay.
At the time, they weren't necessarily forcing us back home. We had the option to.
Oh, rightio.
But then it became a lot harder after that when borders really got strict.
Yeah, okay.
But yeah, I was working for a company at the time, and the company was doing some work for Chantel's parents.
Oh, really?
And
so do you see your missus and was like, holy shit, she's sexy as top? Were you like,
yeah, I walked into their backyard, and she actually came out.
Oh, really?
To give me some instruction on what the job entailed.
So she was sorting you right out from the get-go.
She would love to still say that she has always been telling me what to do from since day one.
Well, Yeah, that's what my missus does
Yeah.
too. Don't worry.
So ever since then, it was just a roller coaster of
cool.
meeting her and then dating during COVID, which was very different. I had a bit of a very tricky circumstance in landing my permanent residency in Australia because of all of COVID and everything like that.
I was about to say that would have been hard to wrap your head around trying to get.
Well, it was very difficult in terms of what they wanted and how they were allowing people to stay at the time, and the paperwork side of things was very difficult, and she and her family played a very integral part in that whole process.
Oh, okay. Yep.
But in saying that, it was, I mean, we had started dating and we had actually started living together.
Oh, right. Okay. You're a quick mover.
Yeah. Yeah.
I don't want to go back to South Africa. Can I please stay with you?
And then, within 4 years of us meeting.
Yep.
Which was 4 years ago last month in May.
Oh, wow. Okay. So you've been here.
What'd
you say? 4 years last month.
Yeah. Her and I have known each other. So in those 4 years, we have dated.
Geez, you're a quick mover. You're already married
moved in, bought a house together.
Is she the one?
Got married, bought a car.
Holy, wow.
Gone on holiday.
She's obviously the one then.
Yeah. And we've got a dog together now.
Oh, you got a dog? Yeah, Harley. He's awesome.
Harley, yes.
Yeah. So that sort of leads me to my next question a little bit, which you've sort of already answered, but I'll still ask it anyway. But so how'd you feel just packing up and just leaving South Africa altogether to come to Australia? As I said, like, you've sort of already answered that, but do you get what I'm saying? Like,
yeah.
Because of the COVID thing, you've sort of.
Yeah, it was very interesting for me before coming to Australia. Something inside of me said that I wanted to come to Australia and there was a chance I wasn't going to come back.
The only reason why I asked that is because you've lived in South Africa for a long time. You've only been here 4 years. That would have been hard for anyone.
Yeah.
So anyone listening to pack up and leave Australia and go overseas just to live, as I said, I think that would be hard for anyone to do.
It was
just everything
It wasn't hard. It wasn't hard settling here because I think I had
people already
key people here, and obviously then met my wife, who was a very big part of the reason of me being here, and the fact that I knew that I wanted to stay here. So it wasn't hard to stay here per se.
Yeah, okay.
Leaving things behind for me was never, material things are material things.
Yeah, of course.
I'm not materialistic. I'm not one for a lot of possessions. I'm very minimalistic, and to me, people are what I value most, and relationship is what I value most. And I've made a lot of mistakes in my life in terms of taking relationships that I valued for granted, and making a lot of wrong decisions. And so,
but that's who defines us anyway.
Yeah.
We're all not perfect. We're all going to make mistakes. So
I think I took the move as an opportunity to start again. Both personally, with the physical side of things in terms of materialistic and things like that, and just start again with just myself. So that for me was kind of where I tried to envision what I was doing. So if I could, I would do a lot of things differently in terms of some of the relationships and things that I've done and decisions I've made. I would love to redo them and
I was just about to ask, because that you've actually just led me to my next question is, how would your life be different? How has your life been different since moving here? I know you've mentioned like the people that you've had around you, especially your wife and all that sort of stuff, but how's it been different from moving from South Africa to here? Look,
I think I've learned to kind of, what's the way I'm thinking of this? I've taken a very different approach to life since being here.
Okay.
I value experience over possession, if that makes sense.
Experience over possession.
Yeah,
okay.
So it's not about what I have, it's more about the things I've done and who I have in my life, if that makes sense. And so
of course.
It's been a real reset moment for me.
Okay.
Like I said, I
Lucky,
knew that
yeah.
I had done things wrong and I'd made bad decisions and some of the relationships I had in my life were also wrong at the time.
Yep.
And so it was a real opportunity for me to start again.
Yeah, okay. Yeah,
start
just like
again
you said,
with-
reset, start
with-
from scratch again.
With relationships,
Yeah.
with people, with myself.
Yep. So it's probably good for you in the end anyway.
Yeah, it was probably the best thing I ever did.
Yeah, okay. Just so you could reset, like as you said,
Hmm.
just reset and start from scratch and just, go, this is where I want to be and this is what I want to do.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Yeah. No, cool. So so how would your life be different if you were to stay in South Africa? Like, so if you weren't here today and you were to stay in South Africa, this is one question. Seriously, this is one question
Yeah.
I'd really like to know because,
Oh,
because you're
do you want
South
the
Af-
honest answer?
you'd probably be dead.
Yeah, I probably wouldn't be alive today.
You reckon?
Yeah, I probably
That's-
wouldn't be alive today, to be honest.
Because I remember talking off air with you, and then you had a bit of a chuckle, and you were like,
Yeah.
wow. So I'd really like to know, like, if you were to stay in South Africa and you weren't here today,
Yeah.
what, where do you think you would have been in South Africa right now?
I would have been in a really bad place.
You reckon?
Yeah, I would have been in a really bad place.
Yeah, okay.
I think like I said, if I didn't have this opportunity and do what I did in terms of making the move across to Australia
Yep.
without being dramatic or anything like that, I don't know if I would be alive today.
Yeah, okay, well,
Yeah.
there you go.
I think
So what are some, sorry, keep going.
I just think that it was tough.
Yeah, okay. Just what is that? Just because of obviously, as I said to you like before, like just the way South Africa is, and
Yeah,
like,
COVID
when
wasn't
you said
good.
you got
yeah.
held by gunpoint and stuff like that, like
Yeah,
that
and
sort of stuff.
Just obviously decisions I'd made, it led me to a point where I was just not happy with
Okay. Yeah.
things and circumstances and
Yeah. Right.
yeah, I'd probably let quite a few people down that
Yep.
at the time were really good to me and that was always a hard thing for me to kind of grapple with.
Yeah. Okay.
And
Cool.
so it was just I don't know I don't know if I could have lived in that situation and try to deal with the emotions and the feelings that I had felt.
Yeah. Okay. Yep.
In that, I needed the space to kind of just reset
Yeah. Cool.
and just kind of grapple with the things that I was struggling with and the relationships that I had in my life that I needed to just
Yeah.
either segregate myself from or kind of just protect myself from at the time.
Well, all jokes aside, I'm glad you're not dead
Thank you. I'm
because
glad.
you are a top bloke.
Yeah.
And you are one of my good mates.
Thanks,
so I'm
Chef.
glad that you made the decision to move to Australia.
Yeah.
Because obviously what you've just said and all that sort of stuff, being in a bad place and you could have
Yeah.
been dead and all that sort of stuff, with where you were, letting people down and all that.
Yeah.
It's good to know that you've made the right decision to come here and obviously you've met your wife and you're obviously in a good place right now.
Yeah, I'm in a good place.
Which is good.
I think, like I said, there's been some really key people in my life throughout
Yeah.
the journey, and even just from the little that I've said in this podcast, I think for me the biggest thing was always that you don't have to do things on your own.
Yeah, yeah.
And when times feel lonely, sometimes that's the only reason you feel lonely is
Yeah.
because we tend to narrow our perspective of what's happening around us,
Yeah,
or the
okay.
people around us, should I say?
Yep.
Because generally there are people that care enough that would want to help, and
Yep.
sometimes they're distracted, and that's okay. But there are also times when, for me, I found something as small as just, a helping hand, or
Yeah.
can I help with anything, or do you need a break, or do you need anything like that? I found.
It's awesome just to, that's what really counts, and that's what I think shows someone who actually really gives a shit is when they ask you for help.
Yeah.
Or, when, do you need a hand, or do you know what I mean? So it's like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? Like, do you know what I'm trying to say? Like, it's that sort of reassures you that.
Yeah, I think for
Yeah,
me,
like-
I think I forgot to mention some other key people in my life. Obviously, when I was going through everything I was going through, there was a particular family that I always admired, and they were probably my best friends at the time. Was Ian and Sean,
Yep.
and their parents and their sister,
Okay.
the Wallington family.
The Wallington.
The Wallington family. They have an incredible story of their own, but
Yeah, right.
they were the most generous, open, trusting, loving family I'd ever come across. Like they would open their door to me. I remember I think I lived at their house with no questions asked for about 3 weeks.
Yeah, right. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay.
Not intentionally. It's just I would stay there in their house and they would feed me. They never asked me for a single cent. They never asked me to leave. They would, and you know what? I wasn't the only one. I know that. Mm-hmm. But their kind of generosity and their unconditional love. I mean, I still remember Sean's mom the one day just wrapping her arms around me and just giving me the biggest hug.
So obviously they're very dear to you. Like they've obviously looked after you and helped you.
Yeah.
Paved a little bit of their way.
Yeah, they were an inspiration, to be honest. They were a real inspiration to me in terms of a family unit and how close they were as a family unit, but also how open they were to people coming in and experiencing that.
It's always good to have people like that that actually care.
Yeah. So they were amazing and they still are.
Cool.
People that I admire to this day.
Yeah, well, shout out to them, you know.
Yeah.
But that's awesome that they took you into their house and looked after you as one of their own. That's pretty cool. So, yeah.
Yeah.
So, I guess the next question, if you had to change one thing in your life, you know, what would it be? So from when you were a kid to now, if there was one thing that you could change, like what would it be and why? Like what growing up?
Wow.
So is there anything that you would change and go, you know, I could have done that better, or do you know what I mean? Like, or I wish I'd done this or whatever, you know, and why? Like,
yeah, look, it's always a hard question because I suppose every decision we have made has put us in this particular position we are today. So,
yeah.
You know, we wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for the decisions we've had to make.
Well, that's exactly right. So the decisions define us.
Yeah.
So
I don't know I think for me is if I could do something differently, I would probably look after the relationships I had with people a lot sooner than I did.
Yeah, right. So what happened? You just let them just
I think
fall by the wayside.
Yeah, I let people down.
Yeah, okay.
And you know, just like I said, just maybe made mistakes and you know didn't do things that I was supposed to do and kind of let those relationships
fall by the wayside.
Yeah, so I think I would do things differently in that I'll cherish them a lot more.
Yep.
Knowing how much they mean to me now.
Okay. So I guess that answers my next question anyway. Do you have any regrets in your life? So that's obviously one of the things that you probably regret that.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll still ask it anyway, but
I don't know if I regret things. Let's put it that way.
Yeah,
because I feel like I said it makes me who I am today and you know the person I am today. But I do. If I could do things differently, I would.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
But I don't regret things. I think I just wish maybe I'd made better choices.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Well, that sounds like me. I wish I made better choices. That's for sure.
Yeah.
So what are your hopes for the future? What do you expect to get out of? Yeah. What do you expect to get out of the future? Now that you're in Australia, you're not quite a citizen, but you're a local resident. And
look, I think for me,
become an Australian citizen.
It's bigger.
I'll help you take the test.
It's bigger. It's bigger than that for me, I think.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah,
I think for me, I want to be a positive influence to people around me.
Yeah, cool. Well, that's why we started this podcast.
It's a big reason. It's not something that I ever thought I would do personally.
Yep.
And I'm a pretty open book, but at the same time, I think I've got a lot of things that I don't speak about.
Okay.
And things that I've had to walk through. And I think for me, I also know I have a lot to offer in terms of life experience.
Yeah, okay. Well, you've done a fair bit of stuff, like you said at the start of the podcast. You know, you've been a professional soccer player. You've been a school teacher, growing up in South Africa. So there is a lot of stuff that you've been through.
Yeah.
So you know what I mean. Like you're not just an average person. Like you've, you know what I mean. You've got a lot to you.
Yeah.
So.
No, I think for me, I'd love to look back at life one day and then not look at those accolades as my defining characteristics, but rather the kind of relationships I have with people and being able to nurture and mold those relationships with people to a point where, you know, I can say wholeheartedly that, you know, I did everything I could to make that person's life better and easier and happier and them be the best versions of themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's all we can do, really. Yeah. At the end of the day, we can only do what we can do, and like, you know, helping people out. There's only so much you can do.
Yeah, like, I think I've in the last 4 years, like to maybe wrap it up for you, the last 4 years I've done a lot of self-development in my own self, in order to just be a better person, not only for me. I think, because that is very important, is to be the best version for me, but also to be the best version for those around me.
Yeah, of course. Yep.
And that has been a hard thing to do. It's cost me a lot personally, and it's cost me a lot relational wise, like I said.
Yep.
But I'm hoping through that, the growth at the end of that is far more exceeding to what the growth could have been. If that makes sense.
Yeah, no, it definitely does.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I think I'm working on myself in order to make those around me better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, of course it does. Yeah, sweet. So I guess the last thing I want to really ask you is, like, have you got any last words before we close the interview? And, you know, the people listening,
words.
Yeah, the people that are listening are, you know, as I said, we didn't go too crazy into detail, but at least the listeners have got to know a little bit about you and where you've come from and where you are. So I guess any last words?
Last words, I would probably be two things.
Yep.
To those maybe that earlier in my life when I was going through things and doing things, to those that I had not given the respect and value that they deserved. You know, I hope that I've honored you enough in this to let you know the impact that you've had on me. And I'm hoping that through that grace that you showed me through those times, that, you know, I would be able to pass that on to others later in life.
Yeah, right.
And then the other thing for me is that, I really want people around me to live their life to the fullest that they can.
Yeah.
And sometimes that means having very hard conversations or hard discussions, and comes with making hard decisions. But if I can say anything, is that with the hard decisions that need to be made, the growth afterwards and the place that you come out afterwards is so much better.
Yeah.
I am better for those harder decisions that I've had to make.
Yeah, and it's always the harder decisions that, as you said yourself, like that make you the better person in the long run.
And it's those decisions that you can't see.
No.
You can't see what the other side of that decision is going to look like.
No, because when it's a hard decision, just in my opinion, but when it is a hard decision, you always look at the bad things.
Yeah.
And you sort of look at one side of the coin, not both. That's just in my opinion. That's just how I do it. I look at the bad things. But as you said yourself later on in life, you realise, oh, wow, there is a better side to it. Making that hard decision was the better option. Where sometimes, you know, I'm bad for it, but I don't look at it like that. Unfortunately, you know what I mean?
It's human nature to kind of
always pick the bad stuff. But
I suppose it's always human nature, and it's, you know me. I'm always one to quote a good quote.
Yeah, you do. Which is not a bad thing. It's great.
Yeah.
So,
but it was basically how did it go? It was something along the lines of, it's better to experience the pain of growth than the pain of staying in the situation you're in.
Yeah, okay.
And that's something that I've probably really wanted to take on board, is because it's easy to stay where we are.
Yep.
And to continue doing the things we do and live with the known.
Yeah.
It's that age-old saying, rather the devil you know than the devil you don't kind of thing, you know?
Of course, yeah.
I would much rather put myself in a position where I can grow and move forward than stay and just deal with it.
Yeah,
that makes sense.
Okay.
And
it definitely does.
That probably it comes back to the whole moving to Australia situation.
Yeah, okay. Yep.
It maybe was a novelty thing, but it was not an easy situation. It hasn't been an easy road.
Well, that's what I said to you. Like, just packing up a country, putting it in your back pocket and going, righty, I'm going to move, that would be a difficult task in itself.
I mean, it took me
just to leave everything,
It took me 3 years to go through every hoop that the Australian government threw at me to get a visa to stay here.
Well, we don't want clowns in our country. so
Yeah, well, you guys are apparently bringing them in.
Yeah,
So,
unfortunately.
So the reason why I say that is because it would have been easy to just pack it all in and go home. But I look
Okay.
at everything I have now and experiences I've been able to achieve through it and the growth I've had personally through it.
Yep.
I wouldn't change it for anything.
No, that's awesome. So you do obviously like Australia and
I love Australia.
Yeah, cool.
I also love South Africa.
Yeah, no, that's all right. I
Yeah.
just was wondering if you love living here.
I love living here.
You
I
do?
do.
Yeah,
I do.
okay.
But I do miss South
You do,
Africa.
yeah,
I miss
yeah,
the
okay.
people.
Yeah, okay.
I miss.
Well, me and you, it's on our travel card. Me and you are going to South Africa.
Yeah, my wife would fight you for that.
Why?
She wants to go back.
No, she can stay here. Me and you are going. You listen to this, Chantel. You got to stay here. Me and Shayne are going. No, it's all good. Anyway, honestly, out of all honesty, that's been awesome for the listeners to find out who you are, where you've come from, and where you're going, and what you've done in your life. I think I'm really hoping the listeners have enjoyed this episode to find out a little piece of you.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you taking the time to give us a bit of a lowdown on you and your country and how you come across to Australia. So
Yeah,
I'm
thanks,
really happy
Chef.
with that. No,
Thank you.
That's good. It's been really awesome.
Thank you.
And as I said, thank you again.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you. And everyone listening, just like to quickly do a shout out and say, don't forget to follow us on our socials.
Yeah, definitely.
That's Instagram and our Facebook, Leave a Light On Podcast.
Yep.
Get on there, give us a like. Be awesome to hear from you as well if you've got some cool feedback or maybe
Yep.
you got a story to share. That would
Yeah,
be something I'd love to start to do is people who share things with us, maybe something that you've gained from this or
what like on our socials?
Yeah.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah.
I'd be up for that. That'd be cool.
If you've
Hear
got a
people's life
story or
stories.
got an inspirational story that you'd love to share with us, send us an inbox, get a hold of us, let us know.
Sweet.
It'd be great to hear from you. But thank you very much for
Yep.
having me on this episode.
No, that's awesome.
Leave
That's
a Light
really-
On Podcast.
Yeah, I've really enjoyed it. Thanks for being on here. So,
Thank you.
Anyway, to the listeners, stay safe out there, and we'll see you on the next episode.
See you on the next episode.
Yeah.
And don't forget,
Let's leave a light on.
let's leave a light on.
Yeah, leave a light on.
Hey, thanks for listening. We hope you managed to gain some insight from today's episode. Jump onto our socials and reach out. And until next time, wherever you are, let's leave a light on.